But joining us right now, live from Portugal, a friend of mine. A lot of you out there know him on Twitter. He's always positive, always friendly, and down to earth. We're going to talk about his special journey with his son. Joining us right now is Marco Mollicola. Marco, welcome.
Hey, Anthony, how you doing? Good to be on the show. Thanks for inviting me.
A pleasure is all mine. We really appreciate you staying up in the wee hours of the morning. What time is it in Portugal right now, Marco?
It's 102 or 103, I guess now.
And give us an understanding, where are you residing in Portugal right now? In Lisbon? Where are you residing?
It's just a little bit outside of Lisbon. It's called Studio, and it's actually a little suburb out there called the Sea. It's a really nice place.
Outstanding. So, Marco, let's go way back. You and your son left a Toronto area a couple months back, and you decided to take this journey. Let's go back and tell our viewers and listeners, the time you spent here in Ontario, and which club you played with. And then let's gradually move up to tell us why you decided to make this big jump and take this journey of a lifetime with your son.
So a couple of different things. So we started off, my son's been playing since he was about 7 years old. And he played an awful long time in Vaughan, in the Vaughan area. So, but he ended up playing, his last club he was with was the Vaughan Azzurri with the OPDL. Had a great time there, had a great coach there, Serge DeLuca, fantastic guy. Great trainers there like Jordan Feliciano, again Serge, Carmine Sacco, fantastic people. About a year ago, actually a year this Sunday, my mom passed away. So we decided, you know what, I kind of took stock and said, if I turn around, you take a look at your life and you say, what do you remember from your parents as you grew up? And, God blessed us an awful lot in our lives. And one of the things that I didn't remember a lot of was the things that I did with my mom. So we really wanted to take our son and have an experience, go somewhere else, spend time with him, and get to a different place in the world that was nice and warm for us as well, and have a good time. So we decided Portugal was a really good place to head to. And of course, he still wants to play soccer, so here we are. And he's going to be playing here this year. So that's really the basis of what we did. But Anthony, as you know it, there's no better place in the world to play than in Europe. One of the greatest places to play is Portugal. Great training, great teams, great culture, a fantastic football environment. So that's really the basis of why we're here. Is to have this life experience and to give him an extra experience in terms of the soccer field.
So, Marco, you've been around a lot of the grass pitches here in Ontario. You've been around a lot of games, whether OPDL, whatever level it was back in the day here in Ontario with your son. Now your son is settled in Portugal, and the coaches understand what they have in him, and he understands what they expect from him. Give us a life in the day of your son, from training to games to the whole package. How different is it compared to here in Ontario?
Well, it's a lot different. I have to say that I think everyone has the same feedback when they've had a new experience in Europe with football. And I think really at the end of the day, what's different is the way coaching is approached, the way training is approached is vastly different. Tender ages, probably not. I think it's really similar in some ways. But when you're talking about, once you get to the 13, 14, 15-year-old age groups, it's a vastly different story. The kids are much more aggressive. They're much more hungry for the ball. Technically, are they as good as the kids in Ontario? Probably, some of the kids in Ontario, probably not. We've got some great technical players coming out of Canada. That's not where we lack. We lack in things like knowledge and understanding of the game. Where to be off the ball, aggression levels, and how to use aggression levels properly, positive aggression. So the training piece that you were asking about in the day in the life of, my son trains with actually two different teams. He trains with a first division team, and he trains with a team that's not in the first division. And he actually plays in what's called the Honor League, which is an amazing league. But, he's able to train at two different places, and it's not an issue. He trains 4 days a week in the morning with the first division team, and he goes in the evenings and trains with the second team, 3 days a week, and plays a game on the weekends. It's vastly different once you get to that game. There's ceremonies. It's very professional. Every team brings a bus, brings kits, their uniforms. They feel like they're part of a professional team. So that experience is a lot different. And I think the other thing that you'll find is very different between the two environments is the way refereeing happens. It's there seems to be a lot more accountability when it comes to the referees.
How so, Marco? How so?
Well, I think I really do believe that the Federation probably gives the folks here a little bit more training, places more onus on them. A lot of the games are videotaped, and so kids are being evaluated. But guess what? So are coaches, and so are referees. So you see that as a basis of change there too, where there's distinct differences between what we see in Ontario and Canada versus here.
Marco, let me ask you this, Marco. In comparison to your time here and where you're at now in Portugal, talk a little bit about the coaching in respect to, do they use each and every player on that bench, or we know the problems here in Ontario and Canada where the coaches want to win at all costs and could care less really about developing, for the most part, I would say about 75% of them, but the more educated, the more understanding and qualified guys don't do that. That's number one. The other one is, talk about the parents. Are they as, I would say, not all, but a lot here, crazy and absolutely over the top if their son doesn't play? Do they, go after refs in the parking lot? Do they get into it with other parents on the opposing team? Give us an outlook on both of those.
So the first thing was the coaching. The coaching and how they approach the game and whether or not kids are getting full time on the field or equal time on the field. I have to say this, Anthony. The one thing I'll tell you about this, and what I'm seeing today, is that, a team has a roster of 24 over here. Not necessarily every kid gets invited to the game. That happens as well. I mean, there's differences that way, but it's a cultural difference. I suppose what I really want to say is usually about 16 kids will show up to the game and every one of them plays, and they all play at the time. But that doesn't necessarily mean that every kid that's on the roster is going to play. So I think one of the things that we need to start leveraging is, hey, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You have a bunch of kids, you see development in them, you see potential in them, so you keep them on, and you play them maybe in a lower age group, or maybe in friendlies, or whatever, but you continue to develop them through training methodologies, right, through the training that you're supplying them. So that is a bit of a difference here, so that's one thing. I think you then asked about the parents. So I haven't really seen any crazy parents here. Everyone just kind of sits off to the side. They have their coffee. They have their little bit of barbecue. They have their cerveza, and they cheer their kids on. But it's not. They don't see. Do they get angry at calls? Sure, they do. Are they freaking out at referees? Of course not, because they know that doesn't help their team. It doesn't help their kid. I think there's also an embarrassment factor as well, right? So it's, again, another cultural difference. So Hope that answers your question.
Marco, let me ask you this. You and I both know this here in Ontario and in Canada. There's too many people still with their hand in the cookie jar, too much politics, too much red tape, on and on and on, too much money being wasted left, right, and center. One big example is districts. I don't understand for the life of me why in 2016 they still belong and take up a ton of money and take up a ton of time and resources when all that could be given directly straight to the province, the OSA, let them see fit how to deal with it. But to me, is there politics? Is there a lot of red tape in Portugal, especially at the youth and grassroots level?
Well, I think there's a distinct difference between the clubs here and the clubs there in the sense that this is not a non-for-profit environment. So I think when you change that motivation in things, red tape, does it exist? Yeah, you better believe it exists. But it's streamlined according to what is best for their club. Districts, everything runs through a central federation here. You know, I've said this for years, and I think anybody who's ever followed me on Twitter knows I rant and rave about certain things. This is the one thing that I do rant and rave about. The federation here is a national federation. You don't have a local federation. So decision-making is done in a central location, and everything comes from that place. Things are different there. Things are different back home in my country. Districts don't exist here, do they? In the sense that they do in Canada. A province doesn't exist when it comes to the delegation of authority by a federal group, or the federation group. It's a single voice, and that single voice dictates whether or not things happen in the country when it comes to football. So it's hard to answer that question without saying, Anthony, I think that we need governance changes back home that follow the same type of thing as every other country in the world, which is you have a federal or federated model where the top makes the decision and comes downwards. So that stuff just doesn't exist.
Marco, just before we let you go, we really appreciate you staying up in the wee hours of the morning. You've been there a couple months now, and this is a journey I expect that is going to be a lot longer than just 6 months or a year. I believe you're there for a long haul because you want to see this out and see how far your son can get to. What's the advice, the pure, honest advice, now that you're there, now that you're living it, breathing it, experiencing it, that you would want to give back to Canadian parents here?
So I think anybody who takes a step to take time and move away and do some different stuff, they really need to understand that before they leave home, they have to do their homework. And before they leave home, they need to understand what their ultimate goal is. And so our goal is a little bit bigger than just the soccer piece. The soccer piece is a wonderful piece, but the thing you really need to focus on is to do your homework as to where you're going and the things you're going to encounter. A lot of the times when you leave home, you don't necessarily know all the different, everything that you're going to require once you get here. You talked about red tape. You talked about getting, red tape in this system. Red tape in the system really exists in terms of having a FIFA number and getting registered into a club here in Portugal or anywhere else in Europe. There's an awful lot of information that you need to bring with you. You have to be prepared to put that together and to be very patient and very diligent at the work that you're doing in order to get that done. So the first thing is really understand what you're going to require before you leave home. That's the best piece of advice.
And that's great.
Maybe they can come and talk to me. I'll help them out.
And that's great advice, and they can follow you on Twitter. But one last thing I forgot to really ask you is simply this. When your son started out, obviously everyone knew that he came from Canada. Maybe some knew Toronto from Portugal because we've got a huge Portuguese population here in Ontario and in Canada. Maybe they knew that. Did he have to really, earn that respect from those young Portuguese players? Did he have to really work extra harder? Did you as a parent have to just sit back, keep quiet, not intermingle because you didn't know what to expect as well? Tell us a little bit about that.
So, from a parenting side perspective, I always sit off to the side for the most part, whether I was back at home or over here. And I have to be honest, the folks here, they're curious. There's a new kid on the block. They want to talk to you, right? And so that was really an easy transition as a parent. But for my son, was it easy? Well, I'll tell you what. Kids are not willing to pass you the ball to start with. So, yeah, do you have to earn your respect? Yeah, of course you do. I think if you don't, then it's not worth it. Anything that's not difficult to do isn't worth doing. And I think he feels the same way. And you know what? You earn that respect quickly by doing what you need to do on the field. There's a language barrier there for him a bit, right? But what you can see is that every kid makes an effort to speak English with him and teach him how to speak Portuguese. And, it took maybe 2-3 weeks, but yeah, you have to earn your bones when it's on your own team. And, everybody knows that you're not from here. So when you play other teams, you're the target. And at the end of the day, you know what, you need to earn your respect a bit. So,
Marco, this has been an absolute blast. There's a lot of people here backing you. There's a lot of people here supporting your son, your journey, and there's a lot of people that enjoy, your work on Twitter and going back and forth with certain topics that we're all, hungry to get the answers for and help one another. You've done that a lot for myself and others out there. So again, really appreciate you joining us. Good luck with your son. Good luck on this journey.
Thanks.
And first and foremost, please never forget the country of Canada, because if your son is good enough one day, it would be fantastic for him to play for Canada, my friend.
Thanks a lot, Anthony. I really enjoyed being on the show. I'll see you in December. I'll come and visit you when I'm back home.